Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Samuel Adams Returns. Those anti-federalists historically, predictively had it right. And this is Tom Navolis, your host. Delighted that you're here with me again today as we consider all of the... Listen, can you hear that noise? Can you hear that cacophony of confusion that is out there all around us? All of the emotionalism from all of the pundits, all of the nothingness from all of the pulpits. Oh my, how do we solve this? What is going on? Oh, guess what? Look at what's going on with the Chi-Com flu. Look out for the jab. Look out, where's the solutions? Here's the answer. Oh, wait a minute, go on the internet, research all these things. Too many things that add to the confusion and all of the rest of the noise that is all around us about every subject matter that is out there. Hey, Brandon, what's that all about? Hey, the ports. Oh my goodness. So let's look at it. Can you hear it? I know, it's there. You can hear it in the background, that clanking, that noise, that cacophony that's resonating all around you. And yet, where's the solution? Where is the actual answers that are going to make that difference in every aspect of your lives, not just in that political realm, because every aspect of your life is being touched by all that is going on around us. So as we look at today's program, and as you have seen in the promo that went out, my newsletter, is that I'm going to be talking about all of this confusion. As always, you know, what I put in the promo and what goes out in that newsletter necessarily doesn't mean I'm going to cover everything. But I do want you to take and make sure that you go and look at the links in the newsletter and, again, look into the references. I do my best to put and refer to everything that I'm talking about there. So it really comes down to this whole question of what is going on. So the way I broke it down this week in the newsletter was to try and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do in segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, and all of that. But what I want to announce right now is that we have taken the time to finally file Samuel Adams Returns as an Ohio State nonprofit, but taxable. So we're working with a company right now. It's a Christian company out of Florida to be able to take donations online, so that when you find that donate button in the newsletter and you find the donate button on the website, you will have a capacity to do that if you so desire to help support this program. We are, as I talked about months ago, looking to expand onto another Christian network. So with that, we do need the support, because I'm not like a lot of other folks out there that are going to be jumping ahead and trying to move into other marketplaces on the radio without having the funds available and making sure that the funds are there. If you become a donor, I will clearly take and give you our transparency document so you understand how we operate, how we will operate, and maintain that transparency and never take Samuel Adams Returns into a debt position. So stand by. I don't believe that the donate button is there on the website yet, but within the week, it will be there. So those that really believe in this program and want to see us expand into other markets, you'll have the opportunity to participate and contribute. So with that, now that we're going to move on, we took care of that. We're going to look at here what I kind of talked about in segment 1, being, let's see here. I made a little quib in there, I guess, talking about the old Fauci head in a box I think you'll see that picture there if you go to the website where Fauci's head's in the box getting eaten by flies. But, we really wanted to ask that question. When we look historically at what was going on during the founding era, was the question or was the chant out there, "Go Brandon"? Yeah. Guess what? It was. There was a chant out there, "Down with the king, down with the parliament," on and on and on. And not so nice either. Pretty flagrant and sometimes volatile words were even used. And guess what? You got it. All of the folks that were out there chanting, hanging all of the officials in effigy from the trees, putting a noose on them and up they go. Yeah, they were called traitors. They were called what? Every name in the book that our democrats in government are calling all true sons and daughters of liberty today. They were also in a, we can dance it about, not knowing people's personal faith. The state religion was a false religion. Today, we have it worse, and we'll talk about that more in the third segment, but our pantheism, and as much as I have talked about the religion of America, the United States, in the last two programs that I referred to it, we're up against it in the whole aspect of letting our Christian heritage be taken over. And you'll hear about that in the third segment some more. So the point being, the Go Brandon thing, it was happening. It happened during that period of time. But also, what put the bookends on all of that was the pulpits. And you have to remember that during that period of time of our foundation was what became known as the First Great Awakening, the revival and reformation inside of the various congregations throughout all the colonies. If it wasn't for that, it would be the same, and in many ways it was the same cacophony of noise because there were issues of logistics. Remember, you could only buy from one place, the East India Trading Company. You have to remember that the trade in America was shut down. Our manufacturing was shut down. Our ability to mine our own resources was shut down. Whatever resources we had to go through England. Whatever we were doing had to go all the way back through the motherland before it ever came back to us. We were not allowed to trade with other countries. Oh, and farming, just think about it. Go take a look in the resources, and we'll talk about it in the second segment a little bit more. Our farmers next year, not next year, because it may be your farm, but next year, those commercial farmers in particular, are you going to be able to do that? Are you going to be able to get the fertilizer necessary to match the seeds that have been genetically modified that require the certain types of fertilizers? Hey, it's time, folks. You better look at what it means to grow a home garden or a community garden. Or what does it mean to do more natural? Because I don't like the organic thing. And the organic farming, it takes like $10,000 and 10 years to get certified for that. I know, I looked into it. But what do you do for natural gardening? Are you going to grow your own food? You might have to. How about those farmers markets? How about the alternative markets that patriots need to come, citizens need to come together on to be able to survive the times ahead of us? All right, so let's look a little bit more. I did not pull up, as I was intending to, a state constitution to bring out in this segment. But what I will do is kind of ratchet back in here as part of all that noise that is out there and talk about Ohio just for a moment or two. And in that, what I want to talk about is our Secretary of State, Mr. LaRose, and that he's supposed to have been a solid conservative, and he was going to make sure that Ohio had election integrity. But he took $500,000 of Zuckerbucks. $500,000 of Zuckerbucks. And then he gets out there and he makes the excuse that, well, we needed the extra money so that we could ensure during COVID that, we had the integrity in the election. Well, that's not what the Zuckerbucks were all there for. The Zuckerbucks were there for, for manipulating the vote, for cheating. Okay? Okay, I can't say that because do we have any proof? Well, I think that the work that Dr. Frank did and what we're seeing very interesting in the press conference that happened in Wisconsin, Racine, Wisconsin, with the sheriff, showed in Wisconsin, amazing. Bureaucrats did what? Made decisions to break the law. Hey, they did it here in Ohio as well. Not necessarily with the voting, but everything that the bureaucrats did, and in our case, with the help of our governor under the whole Chi-Com flu insanity, evil, subjugation, and obviation of our rights was done through the bureaucrats. Oh my. Who appoints the bureaucrats? The governor. You better make sure who the governor is. So what happened here in Ohio is that the bureaucrats have violated Article 1 of the Ohio Constitution. So too, what I very much would say that by taking outside resources, donations from Zuckerberg, I think that our Secretary of State needs to be investigated. What he did is he took lobby money of $500,000 for our elections from a private entity. To me, and when I look at the Ohio Constitution on elections, I think he violated our state constitution. Now, what happened in your state? You know what, for Ohio, on the Ohio Revised Code, there's some things there I didn't bother to really dig into. And maybe he can take bribes. Zuckerbucks. Outside money for the integrity of our election. But if you want to be someone that has the capacity to do the right thing, you would reject those outside monies, especially from people like Zuckerberg, who is the enemy, flat out. Zuckerberg is the enemy of our nation. He is the enemy of our federal and our state constitutions. Now, I do have a link there in the references even showing that his employees are all upset that he's not putting more crimps on conservatives in the Facebook land. So it's interesting. And yet our Secretary of State was willing to take that $500,000 of Zuckbucks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into a little bit more on this cacophony of confusion and how it gets louder. Do you notice it? Are you hearing it? Are the walls vibrating in your house? What's happening in your media world? Are you trying to make decisions in various areas of your life, and yet there's so much information, you're not able to discern something, and you're asking the questions, what do we do? Who do we listen to? Well, Sam Adams had to deal with a lot of that, as well as the Anti-Federalists, so come on back in the next segment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second segment of Samuel Adams Returns. Those Anti-Federalists absolutely historically got it correct. Again, this is me, Tom Navolis, your host, and I am delighted you're here because of all the, you hear it in the background? All of that noise, all of that confusion, that cacophony. Yeah, it's there. Oh my, can we get through it? Can we get through it? Well, what are some of the things that are outstanding? Well, I want to hit you right where it hurts the most in this segment. I promised you that in, the newsletter. And it's like, I want to hit your pocketbook. Get your pocketbook out, take it, and you go ahead. You hit your own pocketbook because what's coming at you, as is in here and in the newsletter, is about your personal commerce. Remember that you transact commerce. You take and you go to work, if you go to work, or you own a business, and you do something. You use your hands, you use your property as you use your intellectual property, you use your physical property. In exchange for doing that, you take and you receive what we have here is wages or monetary compensation. And with that, the majority of the times you have to take, because most people give it to you in a paycheck or your electronic transfer of funds. So they say. And that goes where? It goes to your bank. Well, here we are. We had problems with banking and transacting funds historically. And as I notate there for you, that happened even during our founding era. Banking was a very difficult thing. There was only a simple mechanism for that, and it all revolved and went back to none other than the Bank of England. So when it came to coinage and money, and believe it or not, just as it is today, coins, hard money, which our coins are not hard money, they're fake money, but the real hard money was in short supply in the colonies. Silver, it was in short supply. We just didn't have enough of it to exchange not only personal commerce, but any other large forms of commerce within the colonies. It caused a lot of problems. So here in the colonies, they decided to take and develop land banks or local banking that did hold mortgages on property. Hey, we do it today. It actually started in England in the mid-1600s as well. There's a whole history on the banking of England, and then as it came into America, and the whole aspect and how things operated in the land bank. I have a resource on. I'm not bothering you with that. There's a couple links in there back in the resources of the newsletter that take and on the website, because it's obviously the blog post too. But in there talks about the land banks. And you want to know something? Wouldn't you believe it? The banking system of Great Britain didn't like it. They didn't like the fact that here in America we were developing our own banking system, so they outlawed it. Well, Sam Adams was extremely familiar with this because his father was a part of one of the land banks there in Massachusetts, and it was shut down. It was destroyed by order of Parliament. And in doing so, at one point in time, after Sam's father had passed away, the governor tried to come after the personal property of Sam Adams and family. Well, here's your banking. How's that connect, Tom, to my pocketbook? Well, if you look in there, you will see that the Cornell law professor Saul Omarova is slotted to be the next Comptroller of Currency. And that puts her in charge of the office of Comptroller of Currency, the Treasury agency that supervises national banks and federal thrifts. So what I have in there for you is a link to a paper that she wrote that is the People's Ledger, How to Democratize Money and Finance the Economy. So the intent is that all your deposits from work, from business, any money deposit would 100% go to the federal treasury. Boop. No banks. Unless it was one of the major banks that was tied hand in glove into the treasury, then they could operate. But all of your local banks, even the mid-market banks would be affected. All your money, every effort that you make, you're now a total slave of the federal treasury. You think they're going to let you spend your money the way that you want to spend it if it all goes into the treasury first? Well, this is one of the ways that the Biden Marxist, Stalinist, Leninist government wants to take and fund the government. All right, so enough of that. Go check out those links. Next one, we got to jump back as I promised in the first segment, and in there was to take a look at the supply chain. A couple of quick things there. There's the links on the 80,000 truck driver shortages. It's compounding what's happening in the ports. There's also a link to an article there that the ports, the California is going to start charging the shipping companies, the ships. So if a ship comes up along the dock and it's more than, 72 hours there that it doesn't get unloaded, they're going to start fining the shipping company $100 per container. Some of those ships have a few thousand containers maybe on board. I don't know. I don't remember what they are. But think about it. What type of shortages is that going to cause? How much are things going to go up even higher? What's going to happen in inflation? So not only is the economy going to be hit by none other than the folks, the drivers, the real Americans on the roads that won't take the jab and won't be able to drive and help unload those ports. But now the ports are going to be fined at $100 per container if they can't get their cargo unloaded. Okay, let's keep that cacophony. Do you hear it? Do you hear that noise all around you? But yet, where's the pundits? They're raising the emotions. They're causing you to go, your head to swell. You're going to blow up with everything. You can't find the answers. The answers are there. We're going to talk about them in the next segment. They're historically there. They're right before you. They're right before you. Now, don't forget, here we go. We're going to throw it in. What do we got? 5 minutes, Kat? Something like that? Yeah, so within that. So here, don't forget, go and look in the links. Go and look inside what I have there in your references. All the transgender confusion. You talk about confusion. Oh, my goodness gracious. That is so disgusting and sick. We had some things happen here in our county around the transgender where the board was forced to take on someone that goes after kids. I think I already mentioned that. She's part of an organization. She's a psychologist out of Cleveland Clinic, or psychiatrist, or some kind of psychobabblist from Cleveland Clinic that is pro-transgender for children and even giving them their shots to change. Anyway. What about critical race theology? Hey, I do not call it a theory, as with all these other things, and we've talked about it in the last 2 programs. It's a theology. It's what they believe. It's a core belief that is within them that is destructive to everything else that our foundation was built on. Oh my, there it is. If you just take and you look at, it's kind of fun. looking at the different news aggregators that are out there, you talk about a cacophony of noise. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not just the local media. It's not just the stuff that you're, seeing on the internet. It's not just the, all of the named pundits that are out there that are giving lip service, that are pointing all of these problems out. I'm doing what is there on all the aggregators right now in this segment in particular, is I'm making the cacophony of noise all around you. The question is going to be, where did the likes of Sam Adams find the solutions? Where did America come together in finding the solutions from having all of those, what did you call them? Oh, we called them what? The Sons of Liberty roaming through the streets, hanging people in effigy, bureaucrats, the king in effigy, people of parliament, the governor of Massachusetts, and other governors, hanging them in effigy. My, what else was going on though? What were the bookends that really brought us together to become the nation that we are? Sam Adams understood that. And I'm going to talk about that as we get into the next segment here shortly. All right. So here's what I want to leave you with. We're down to 2 minutes. Oh, wow. I have 3.5, Cat says. So think about General Flynn here for a little bit. Everything that happened with him. He was falsely accused. He came under federal investigation. He ended up going before a one-sided magistrate. The Department of Justice took and hid all sorts of background information that would be necessary to show his innocence within the case. Well, I like what I said in the newsletter is monkey see, monkey do. How about you? Here it is. Here we go. No other place than Idaho. So I looked at this. I really would like you to take and look at the link that I have here on the website, SamuelAdamsReturns.net. Hey, that's the first time I mentioned it to you. You got it hanging over my shoulder if you're watching this on video. We are on Rumble. Who knows what goes up on YouTube? They don't like me anymore. But this whole issue of Stickergate. Now, I had Pastor Wilson on the program a few months back, and we talked about Stickergate and what that meant about his grandsons and his sons being charged for a crazy multiple misdemeanor thing. Well, guess what? Guess what? A police officer actually came forward before this all went to court and gave testimony. He actually brought forward, before he had to, under sworn oath at the court, give testimony that, yes, the police do have video of the arrest and interrogations of the young boys. Oh, that was withheld evidence. Hello, General Flynn, from the national level all the way down to your local level. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the antics that were happening within the colonies of the day. You see, there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new. It's how do we stand for justice? How do we look at righteousness? And how do we overcome all of the evils that have worked their way in to every nook and cranny of what we are supposed to be as a constitutional republic? Yeah, go check out that article about Stickergate. I think you'll find it very interesting on what is written there. It's really, really good. Oh my. We have the, you hearing it again as we're getting close to the end of the program? Are you hearing all that cacophony of noise? Well, I'm not talking about the music. That's a George Washington march. But Sam Adams knew about the noise, and he knew how to settle it down, as well as many of our other founders. And we're going to be talking about that as we move now into the third segment, so come on back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this third and final segment for today. Samuel Adams Returns. Those anti-federalists, they got it so correct. Once again, this is me, Tom Navulis, your host, and we are at SamuelAdamsReturns.net. That's where you can find all of the, what I call the blog post, the promo, the newsletter is all embedded there at SamuelAdamsReturns.net with all the references and the podcast, the audio of this, as well as the video as we put that up on Rumble, of course. And hopefully very, very soon, you'll also see, I'm going to put it on every post so that people can understand that there will be a donate button there. And the purpose of that donate button is because, as I explained in the first segment, we have been asked, not sought ourselves, but asked by a Christian network to expand into their market areas. They came to me and they did that. They've been hounding me for 2 years. But now we have formed an Ohio nonprofit that is taxable. So your donations are not tax deductible, but we do hope you donate so that we can take and expand into these other markets. And we'll explain that. There will be a place on the website that'll talk about that for you so you have a clear understanding of what we're doing and how we're doing it. Now, we talked about it in the first 2 segments, is the cacophony of all the confusion that is around us. And I tried to build that up for you as much as I could in the time that we've had. But the pundits, the educators, the politicians, and never from a bureaucrat will you hear a solution. But worse, ladies and gentlemen, worse of all, from very, very few pulpits are you hearing the solution. Look, I am going to go down that path, and some of you here may want to check out at this time because you don't want to hear this solution anyway, because it all drives down to the same solution that Sam Adams knew and lived. It is the solution that came about from what we now call the First Great Awakening. What that was a not just revivalism, but it was a reformation within the congregations as well as the individuals during the founding era. You know, I kept saying, what's the bookends on everybody running around out there taking and saying, go Brandon? You know, what are the bookends? The bookends during our founding era were the pulpits. And what the pulpits were preaching at that period of time is kind of what I want to talk about. Now, the references for Sam Adams, there are a whole bunch. Why don't you just go on the site and take and do a look. Go look at what I have on the site in the menus on the on Sam Adams in referencing to his Puritan heritage. That's why the site is called what it is, and referencing his Puritan background. Sam Adams was not the drunkard. I really feel bad for all of these authors out there that take one word or one statement or one of his monikers and try to disparage Sam Adams. But the fact is, from my years of study of him, is in truth that he lived in total aspect. And it's not just me saying this, it's actually others that have said this about him. He lived his Christian life in everything that he did. Oh, let me see. That's called Calvinism. That's called the taking and living extensively, as I use that word, the extensible gospel in every portion of life, in your work, in your politics, in what you do before and in your congregation. Most importantly, how you live it in your family. Okay, that's where it starts. Self-governance also works through that whole component, which I'm not going to get into the whole thing on where self, family, then community. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Adams knew about that very, very well. And that included with those bookends of what was being preached during that period of time in what is now known as the Great Awakening. That is what established this country. That is what made this country successful. That is what took this country forward. And you're going, Tom, that's all a bunch of baloney. We got to figure all this stuff out and blah, 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 blah. No, I want to take and bring you to an individual that I have made note of before, is Abraham Kuiper. And just real quick, Kuiper was born 115 years after Sam Adams. So you have to understand, let's tie back just for a second here, is that some of the pastors during Sam Adams' time was Jonathan Mayhew, who influenced him, Andrew Elliott, Samuel Kuiper, Charles Chauncey, Matthew Biles. These were all true to the Puritan standards, okay? Generally, and as regarded in faith, eloquent in their office, friends and advisors to political leaders themselves, often political leaders. Yeah. What do you mean? The pulpit? Getting involved in politics? Running for office? Taking positions on the mental health board? The health board? Oh, come on, Tom. We don't do that. If it's not heavenly, it's not to be. That's a separation. Oh, you know what? Go roll around in some mud, because pigs are cleaner than pastors that say that. The bottom line is that Kuiper understood that practicality of things. And he was from the Netherlands. And the Netherlands were spiritual dumps in his youth. I mean, he was born in 35 or something like that. And, you know, there were just a lot of problems that were going on at that time there. And, you know, Kuiper came along just as the new Reformation started happening back in about 1830. But in just the beginning, because as that was happening with a person in Parliament, a Mr. Printer, I can't pronounce it right, that, you know, it just was there. A revival of the gospel was going on, but no different than here. Right now, what was going on also is that the evangelicals could no longer be tolerated. It was not irreligion that was wanted, but religion such as would please everyone, Jews included. But they came after Christians, came after them very, very strongly. And, you know, Kuiper came along. At first, man, he didn't want anything to do with Christianity. But eventually, what do I got, 8 minutes? 6.5. Kuiper came along. He became one of the premier preachers in the Netherlands. Not only that, you know what? He studied a Polish reformer. Wow. Who really had impact in what was going on in the Reformation of England, and then this Polish reformer and what happened in Poland. That all kind of fizzled out there in Poland, just as it's fizzled out here in America. And a lot of the reasons are, well, I'll get to that reason here in a moment. But Kuiper, by the request of the Queen, became the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Prime Minister, at the request of the Queen. And it is said of him that the Netherlands became what they became at that time because of Kuiper, his preaching, his understanding of taking the Word of God through the principles of Calvinism into every aspect of life, every aspect, every iota, okay? And if you're not doing that, if you're a believer in Christ and you're not doing that, then you know what? Go listen to the Cacophony of Noise because, hell's going to be a whole lot of that and worse, but that's what you're going to get because that's what you're getting from the evil people now is just that little bit of touch of hell right before your eyes and your ears. So Kuiper said this, and in what I have there in the references for you is he came to America in 1887, and at Princeton University, he gave a series of lectures that are called the Stone Lectures. It's 6 lectures on Calvinism in such a way that he says Protestantism alone wanders about in the wilderness without aim or direction, moving hither and thither without making any progress. Hello, church in America. He didn't say that, I did. This accounts for the fact that among Protestant nations, pantheism, born from the new German philosophy and owing its concrete evolution form to Darwinism, claims for itself more and more the supremacy in every sphere of human life, even in that of theology, and under all sorts of names tries to overthrow our Christian traditions and is bent upon exchanging the heritage of our fathers for a hopeless modern Buddhism. He goes on to talk about some other aspects of it, and the whole idea is that what is happening with this pantheism that's out there is a life form. That means it is the totality of what it means for that whole inner relationship. It is the extensibility of the anti-gospel, okay? But what he continues to say is their struggles, and this is our founding fathers, he's referring to us in America, their struggles were for the sake of the glory of God and a purified Christianity. The present movement wages war for the sake of the glory of man, being inspired not by the humble mind of Golgotha, but by the pride of, hey, America, hero worship. Hero worship. And he gave this in 1887. And why did we, Christians, stand so weak in the face of this modernism? Why did we constantly lose ground? Simply because we were devoid of an equal unity of life conception, such as alone could enable us with the irresistible energy to repel the enemy at the frontier. We hear all of this stuff about worldview, and we hear all these other, Christian organizations. We have to have a Christian worldview. We have to have a Christian worldview. I'll tell you what, you need to understand what Kuiper was talking about back there in 1887. You need to understand what it means to have a real Christian worldview. So what is a worldview? What is that? That's what Kuiper is talking about here when he talks about a life system. So what we're missing here right now from the pulpits is a clear understanding of that foundational truth. There's a clear understanding of what was going on during that first, what we now call, Great Awakening. The Reformation in the churches, the understanding, and Kuiper goes through all of the different, I guess you would call them denominational things of the day, which are all of the stuff, denominational stuff that's kind of come around, and even the liberalism in the churches. And he says, you know what? The only answer, and I'm going to take a strong stand on this one because I think it is, after studying this very long and numbers of years, he says the only unifying theology that our founders found and was preached from the pulpits was Calvinism. I highly recommend that to start the solution set is that you take a look at, yes, the Stone Lectures by Kuiper. Ladies and gentlemen, when we want answers to the cacophony of noise that's out there and how do we bring this nation back, it starts with you. It starts with your relationship with God. It starts with how your pastor is going to stand at the pulpit, no different than the founding pastors, and stand for liberty that only starts with Jesus. Sam Adams understood this oh so well and lived it in the fullness of his life, his political works, and everything he did. Come on back next week.